You are not afraid of life. You are afraid of your own judgments about life. That fear lives in how you interpret events you cannot control, and it weakens you more than any event ever could. Everything you suffer from begins in the mind before it ever touches reality. Right now, your attention is scattered between what happens to you and what you think it means about you. Stoic practice begins by taking control of that inner interpretation and refusing to let it run unchecked. What is not in your control is not yours to carry. What is yours is how you respond, how you think, and how you act with reason in every moment. If you want to think clearly and live without inner collapse, stay here with this series and consider subscribing, not for entertainment, but for training the mind towards steadiness, discipline, and honest self-examination. Number 1. The quote that changed everything. There is a sentence that can strip fear of its power if a man truly lets it enter him. Not hear it, not admire it. Let it enter. Let it cut through the excuses, the noise, the nervous calculations, the habit of imagining disaster before it has even arrived. The sentence is this: you have power over your mind, not over the things outside it. Realize this, and you will find strength. That is not comfort, it is command. It does not promise that the world will become gentle. It does not promise that people will become fair, that the future will become certain, or that pain will ask permission before it comes. It tells you something far more valuable. It tells you where your authority ends and where your life begins. Most men live as if fear were caused by events. They say they are afraid of failure, afraid of loss, afraid of sickness, afraid of rejection, afraid of death, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being left behind. But fear is rarely born from the thing itself. It grows from the judgment placed upon the thing. The event is one thing. The story you tell yourself about it is another. The wound is often not in the world. It is in the mind that has surrendered its duty to judge clearly. This is why two men can stand before the same hardship and live two completely different inner lives. One collapses before the imagined meaning of the event. The other holds his ground because he has trained himself to see the event for what it is, matter moving according to nature, not a verdict on his worth, not a theft of his virtue, not a command to abandon reason. You must begin there, not with hope, not with motivation, with judgment. Examine your fear honestly, and you will see how much of it is borrowed from other people's opinions, borrowed from future catastrophes you have rehearsed in secret, borrowed from pride, borrowed from the childish belief that life should protect you from discomfort because you desire comfort so badly. Life owes you none of that. The world is not organized around your preference. The body can be struck, reputation can be damaged, possessions can be lost, plans can fail, people can betray you, time will pass. All of this is ordinary. What is not ordinary is a soul trained to meet these things without surrendering itself to panic. That is rare. That is strength. Fear begins when you confuse what happens with what is good or bad. That confusion is the beginning of slavery. A man says, "If I lose this job, I am ruined." Another says, "If they speak against me, I am diminished." Another says, "If my health fails, I cannot be happy." Another says, "If I am alone, I am nothing." Each one has handed his piece to something outside his control and then calls himself unlucky when it is shaken. But nothing outside your choice can touch your character unless you hand it the key. Nothing outside your mind can corrupt your will unless you consent to be corrupted. That is the place of freedom. Not in arranging the world to your liking, in ruling yourself in the middle of an unruly world. So look carefully at what you fear. Is it truly the event, or is it your judgment about the event? Is it the loss itself, or the meaning you have attached to loss? Is it the pain itself, or the story that pain means you have been defeated? Is it the insult, or your craving to be thought well of? Is it the uncertainty or your demand to know the future before you are willing to live today? You will not become fearless by pretending these things do not matter. You will become fearless by ordering them correctly. The body may suffer, but the self is not the body. The name may be attacked, but virtue is not a rumor. Possessions may vanish, but goodness was never stored in a drawer. A life can be shortened, but a good life is not measured by length. It is measured by the quality of the mind that inhabited it. Here is the first discipline. Every morning, before the world has touched you, decide what belongs to you and what does not. Your judgments belong to you. Your choices belong to you. Your willingness to act justly belongs to you. Your refusal to lie belongs to you. Your ability to bear pain with dignity belongs to you. Your impulse to complain, envy, indulge, or flee belongs to you only if you allow it to rule you. The weather does not belong to you. The moods of others do not belong to you. The praise of strangers does not belong to you. The timing of events does not belong to you. The length of your life does not belong to you. The body is under loan. The moment is borrowed. The task is not to control all things. The task is to live rightly in the midst of what cannot be controlled. A man who understands this stands differently. He does not collapse when the day disappoints him. He does not explode when plans change. He does not beg reality to apologize. He asks one question only: what does virtue require now? Not what does comfort require. Not what does vanity require. Not what does fear require. What does virtue require now? That question cuts through confusion because it turns the mind away from fantasy and back toward duty. Duty is not dramatic. It is not glamorous. It is often quiet. Speak truthfully. Work carefully. Endure what must be endured. Refuse what is base. Keep your character clean. These things do not attract applause from the crowd, but they produce a man who can stand in any season without losing himself. You have likely spent much of your life reacting to appearances. A message arrives and your chest tightens. Someone's tone changes and you feel threatened. An opportunity appears and you become greedy. A plan fails and you become bitter. A mistake is made and you become ashamed. But every reaction proves you are not governing the mind. You are being dragged by impression. The Stoic life begins when an impression arrives, and you do not obey it immediately. You pause, you inspect it, you ask whether it is true, you ask whether it is within your power, you ask whether it is worthy of your assent. That pause is where freedom lives. Without it, you are a servant of whatever enters your senses. With it, you become a ruler of yourself. This is not a small thing. This is the whole war. Not war against other people, war against false judgments, weak desires, and the habit of surrendering your mind to the first voice that speaks inside it. A coward is not always the man who runs from battle. Often he is the man who runs from the pain of seeing himself clearly. He avoids silence because silence exposes him. He keeps himself busy because stillness would reveal how disordered he has become. He consumes noise because he cannot bear the face of his own mind. But the examined life does not fear exposure. It welcomes it. It says, "Show me what I am. Let me see where I am enslaved. Let me see what I worship. Let me see what I fear. Let me see what I cannot bear. Only then can I heal what is broken." Do not ask for a softer truth than this. Most of your fear comes from caring too much about the wrong things. You fear losing status because status flatters vanity. You fear being ignored because being seen feeds vanity. You fear hardship because comfort has made you weak. You fear not getting your way because desire has become tyrannical. You fear the judgment of others because you have not yet made virtue your only measure. You fear death because you think life belongs to you rather than being a brief service entrusted to you for a time. Every fear is a teacher if you are willing to listen. It reveals the place where reason has been displaced by appetite, where duty has been replaced by craving, where the soul has abandoned command and kneels before appearances. This is why the fearless man is not the one who feels nothing. He is the one who refuses to be governed by feeling alone. He feels fear, perhaps, but he does not obey it. He sees danger, but he does not exaggerate it into catastrophe. He sees pain, but he does not call it evil unless it corrupts his character. He sees uncertainty, but he does not demand impossible guarantees before acting. He sees death, but he does not treat death as an argument against living rightly. He knows that the only thing that can truly harm him is vice, because vice is the surrender of the ruling faculty. Everything else may be hard. Not everything hard is harmful. You must train this understanding into your bones. Reading it once will not change you. Admiring it will not change you. Repeating it only when life is easy will not change you. You must practice it under pressure. Begin with the morning. Before touching your phone, before opening your inbox, before letting the opinions of strangers flood your attention, sit with yourself and state the truth. Today I will meet interruptions. Today I will meet conflict. Today I may be misunderstood. Today I may be delayed. Today I may be denied. Today I may be tested. None of these things can destroy my character unless I choose to let them. Today my task is to remain just, restrained, honest, and clear. Say it plainly. Do not decorate it. The soul does not need decoration. It needs direction. Then prepare for the first annoyance of the day, not in fear, but in readiness. The Stoic does not wake expecting ease. He wakes expecting trial and choosing to meet it well. This is not pessimism, it is wisdom. The man who expects no difficulty is shocked by the first inconvenience and behaves like a child. The man who expects difficulty is not surprised by the weather of life. He has already decided what kind of person he will be in it. That decision is the beginning of courage. Courage is not the absence of trembling. It is the refusal to let trembling dictate your conduct. There is another exercise you must begin today. When fear appears, name the impression without decorating it. Do not say, "This is unbearable." Say, "I am having the impression that this is unbearable." Do not say, "This will ruin everything." Say, "I am having the impression that this may ruin everything." The first statement merges you with the fear. The second creates space between the mind and the thought. In that space, reason can work. In that space, you can ask whether the thought is true, whether it is useful, whether it is in your power, whether it requires immediate action or patient endurance. Many fears die when seen clearly. They survive only in the fog of unexamined language. Precision is a weapon. Use it. You must also learn to endure discomfort by choice, not only by necessity. The man who never denies himself anything becomes fragile. He becomes dependent on warmth, ease, appetite, and applause. Then life only needs to withdraw one comfort, and he discovers how little command he has over himself. So practice voluntary hardship in a measured way. Take a cold walk when comfort would be easier. Eat simply sometimes. Choose the less pleasant seat. Leave the pleasing distraction untouched. Let your body learn that discomfort is not a command to panic. It is a condition to be governed. Do this not to punish yourself, but to liberate yourself from dependence. A mind that can bear little things will bear big things more steadily. The one who has rehearsed endurance will not be shocked by the necessities of life. Do not misunderstand this discipline. It is not a performance. It is not a way to prove toughness to others. It is private training for public hardship. When no one sees you, you are learning whether you can govern yourself. When no one applauds, you are learning whether your virtue depends on recognition. When you choose restraint in secret, you are building a character that does not collapse when tested in daylight. This is the work. Quiet, repeated, serious, unromantic. effective. Now turn to the matter of death, because fear of death sits at the bottom of many other fears. People say they fear losing money, losing love, losing health, losing identity. Beneath much of that lies the fear that all things end, and yes, they do end. Your body will not remain, your roles will not remain, your possessions will not remain, the faces around you will change, the seasons will turn, time takes back what it lends. That is not cruelty, that is nature. A sane man does not resent nature for being nature. He aligns himself with it. He accepts that what is born must pass away, and that his task is not to cling to the impossible, but to live honorably while life is here. A man who has truly examined death becomes less enslaved by lesser terrors. He stops acting as if every inconvenience were a catastrophe. He stops inflating insults into emergencies. He stops making comfort his God because he knows comfort cannot grant immortality. He begins to understand that each day is a complete life in miniature. You do not need to know how many days remain. You need to know how to live this one. That is enough. This morning may be the only morning you are given. Let it find you faithful rather than distracted. Let it find you clean rather than indulgent. Let it find you awake rather than asleep in your own appetites. There is also fear rooted in the opinions of others. Few chains are stronger because few are more invisible. A person can be praised and still be miserable because he has made others the judges of his worth. He can be criticized and collapse because he has placed his peace outside himself. He can be ignored and feel erased because he has not built his identity on character. Listen carefully. Another person's opinion is not your ruling faculty. It is not your standard. It is not your soul. Some will praise you for the wrong reasons. Some will blame you without understanding you. Some will not see you at all. This is the common condition of human life. To live well, you must stop needing the crowd to certify your value. Virtue is its own witness. A just act needs no audience. A restrained act needs no applause. A truthful act needs no permission. Ask yourself how much of your daily anxiety exists because you are performing for imagined spectators. How much of your speech is shaped by the desire to be liked? How much of your silence is shaped by the fear of being disliked? How much of your ambition is genuine duty, and how much is vanity wearing duty's clothing? Strip it down. Be honest. The soul is made smaller by pretension. It is made larger by truth. A fearless man has no need to be admired by everyone because he has already made peace with the only approval that matters, his own reason tested by virtue. When the day becomes difficult, do not ask why it is happening to you as though you were singled out unfairly. That question is often a disguised complaint. Ask instead how a rational and upright mind behaves in such conditions. If you are insulted, do not rush to defend your pride. Examine whether the insult contains truth, and if it does, use it. If it does not, discard it. Why should false words wound what is governed by reason? If someone betrays you, do not let their vice infect your own. Their character is their burden. Your character is yours. If you are delayed, do not curse the delay. Use the time well. If you are denied, do not surrender dignity. Continue in the right path. The obstacle is not a signal to abandon the task. It is a test of whether you mean what you say. This is why the Stoic does not waste energy on complaint. Complaint is often a confession that one has not prepared oneself for reality. A man complains because reality has refused to obey his preference. But preference is not command. Preference is a small thing compared with duty. The proper response to difficulty is not resentment, it is right action. If you can act, act. If you cannot, endure. If you are uncertain, pause and think clearly. If you are tempted, resist. If you are afraid, remember the distinction between what belongs to you and what does not. The discipline is simple to state and hard to live. That is why it matters. Anything easy would be too small for the soul. You may ask, how to become steadier when fear rises suddenly? The answer is rehearsal. The mind does not become brave in the moment of crisis if it has never practiced courage in calm conditions. Each evening, review the day, not to indulge guilt, to train honesty. Where did I yield to fear? Where did I exaggerate? Where did I avoid? Where did I speak badly? Where did I waste attention? Where did I forget what is mine to govern? Where did I act with reason? Where did I remain firm? Where did I allow appetite to govern me? Where did I choose virtue over comfort? This is not a ritual of shame. It is a practice of correction. The man who can look at himself without flinching is already becoming difficult to defeat. In this evening examination, do not let yourself off easily. Do not say, "I was tired." Tiredness explains little. It does not excuse surrender. Do not say, "That is just how I am." That phrase is a graveyard for growth. You are not fixed by your weaknesses. You are responsible for them. And what is your responsibility can be improved by attention. You are capable of learning how to pause before reacting, how to endure without resentment, how to act without needing approval, how to face loss without melodrama, how to accept fate without inner resistance. These things are not fantasy, they are training. Fear also hides inside desire. The more you insist on getting exactly what you want, the more vulnerable you become to panic. Wanting a thing is not the problem. Being ruled by wanting is the problem. Desire becomes dangerous when it turns into dependence. Then any obstacle looks like a threat to your existence. You must therefore train your desires to be modest, orderly, and under reason's command. Want what is honorable, want to act well, want to speak truth, want to be just, want to meet hardship with steady eyes, want to be free from inner disorder. These desires strengthen you because they cannot be stolen by chance. But wanting wealth, praise, power, or endless comfort as necessities will make you a trembling servant of fortune. Take care not to make yourself miserable by chasing things that cannot satisfy the soul. No amount of external possession can heal a disordered judgment. A rich man may fear losing money because his security rests in money. A poor man may fear being seen because his dignity rests in the gaze of others. A powerful man may fear weakness because his identity rests in control. None of them are free until they recover their proper measure. The proper measure is this: only character is truly good, only vice is truly bad. Everything else is material for use. Health, wealth, loss, pain, obscurity, reputation, strength, weakness, praise, blame, these are materials. What matters is how you use them. That is within your power. That is enough. Look at your life with that clarity. The deadline, the relationship, the debt, the failure, the future, the uncertainty, the body, the memory of what you lost, the fear of what you might lose. These are all materials. They do not define your goodness. They provide the field in which your goodness is tested. Your task is not to escape the field. Your task is to act well within it. The soul that understands this becomes hard to shake because its foundation is not built on conditions that change every hour. There will still be moments when fear comes with force. Do not be surprised. Fear is not always banished by understanding in a single stroke, but each time it appears, you have the opportunity to answer it with discipline. Breathe, pause, name the impression, separate the fact from the story. Ask what is within your control. Ask what virtue requires. Refuse to add imaginary suffering to real difficulty. One hardship is enough. Do not invent 10 more in your mind. The habit of imagining disasters is a form of self-attack. Stop doing the enemy's work for him. The enemy is not the event. The enemy is the false judgment that says the event owns you. There is dignity in this. There is a sober beauty in the soul that refuses to panic. Such a soul is not cold, it is not indifferent in the shallow sense, it is deeply engaged but rightly ordered. It cares about people, but not at the cost of integrity. It cares about work, but not at the cost of truth. It cares about the body, but not as though the body were the highest thing. It cares about tomorrow, but does not mortgage today to it. It cares about death, not because it welcomes death as an end in itself, but because it refuses to live as though life were infinite. That refusal sharpens action, it cleans away laziness, it burns off nonsense. You must remember that much of fear is wasted energy spent on things that have not happened. The mind runs ahead and suffers in advance. It rehearses humiliation, ruin, abandonment, pain, decline. Then, when reality finally arrives, it says, "I knew it," as though the suffering it created beforehand were wisdom. It is not wisdom, it is imagination ungoverned by reason. Do not follow it. Bring your mind back to the present task. The present task is the only place where virtue can exist. The future does not yet belong to you. The past is no longer yours. This moment is yours to govern. Use it. When you are tempted to panic, ask yourself whether the thing before you asks for fear or for action. Most things ask for action. Make the call. Do the work. Speak the necessary word. Let go of what must be let go. Apologize if you were wrong. Hold your tongue if speech would be base. Persist if the work is honorable. Withdraw if the battle is foolish. Endure if endurance is the right response. Fear often dissolves when action begins, because action restores the mind to its proper role. A man frozen in dread is often a man who has abandoned practical judgment. Put him back to work and he recovers himself. Do not mistake the absence of external peace for the absence of inner order. The world may remain noisy, people may remain unfair, fortune may remain unstable, yet the inner citadel can stand. This is the meaning of strength, not control over events, but command over one's response. Not exemption from loss, but freedom from servitude to loss. Not immunity from pain, but refusal to let pain make one unjust. Not endless life, but a life governed by reason until the end. That is enough for a human being. It is more than enough. It is noble. And because it is noble, it must be practiced as though your life depended on it. Because it does. Every day you delay this work is another day spent handing your peace to what lies outside your command. Every day you indulge fear without examining it is another day you strengthen the wrong master. Every time you let the opinion of others determine your conduct, you sell a portion of your freedom. Every time you choose comfort over virtue, you teach yourself to be weaker than you are. Enough. The time for vague intention is over. The mind must be trained, the soul must be corrected, the ruling faculty must be restored to its throne. Start now, not in some imagined future when you feel ready. You will not feel ready. Readiness is built by use. Today choose one fear and examine it honestly. Write it down if you must. State what is actually happening. State what you are imagining. State what is within your control. State what virtue requires, then act accordingly. Tonight, review where you obeyed fear and where you obeyed reason. Tomorrow, rise before the day and make your mind ready again. Repeat until the response becomes natural, not effortless, natural. There is a difference. A disciplined life is not one without effort. It is one in which effort has been directed so consistently that virtue begins to feel like home. This is how fear loses its throne, not by arguing with it endlessly, not by pretending to be above it, but by refusing to grant it authority over judgment. The quote that can make a man fearless does not remove life's dangers. It removes the lie that dangers have the power to define you. It teaches you that your mind is yours to govern, that your judgments are yours to correct, that your virtue is yours to preserve, and that nothing else deserves the dignity of ruling your soul. Hold to that, and you will become difficult to frighten. Hold to that, and the world may still shake, but you will not. Hold to that, and you will stop living as a prisoner of appearances. You will begin living as a free man. And free men do not waste their days feeding fear. They meet the hour. They do the work. They bear what comes. They choose what is right. They leave complaint behind. They keep their minds clear. They remember that life is short, that virtue is enough, that the only truly fatal thing is to betray oneself. So stand up inside yourself. End the surrender. End the habit of making every shadow into a threat. End the practice of kneeling before uncertainty. Begin the harder and better work of governing your mind. The world will not become gentler because you wish it so, but you can become stronger, and strength, rightly understood, is fearlessness with reason at its center. Number 2. Fear begins inside your judgment. The greatest danger to your peace is not the world that surrounds you. It is the judgment that rises inside you before reason has been given the chance to speak. Fear does not first enter through the event, it enters through the opinion you form about the event. Long before your hands begin to shake, long before your voice changes, long before your sleep is disturbed, your mind has already declared that something outside you possesses the power to determine the quality of your life. That declaration is rarely examined. It is accepted with astonishing speed, as though every first impression deserves immediate obedience. Yet this is where suffering begins, not because reality has conquered you, but because your own judgment has surrendered before reality has even been understood. Observe your own mind with complete honesty. A message arrives, and before you have read it fully, you imagine conflict. Someone fails to greet you with warmth, and you conclude that you have been rejected. A delay interrupts your plans, and you decide that the entire day has been ruined. A single criticism reaches your ears, and your thoughts race toward the belief that your worth has been diminished. Notice how little evidence is required before your mind begins constructing an entire world of unnecessary distress. The event remains small, yet the judgment transforms it into something enormous. The burden you carry is often built less by circumstance than by interpretation. The disciplined life begins with a refusal to believe every thought that presents itself as truth. The first movement of the mind belongs to nature, the second belongs to character. You cannot always prevent an impression from appearing, but you remain responsible for deciding whether it deserves your agreement. That responsibility cannot be given to another person. It cannot be postponed until tomorrow. It exists in every conversation, every disappointment, every temptation, every unexpected turn of the day. A mind that fails to examine its judgments gradually loses the ability to distinguish appearance from reality. Such a mind becomes restless because it has surrendered its highest responsibility. Many people imagine that freedom means arranging life so nothing unpleasant happens. They spend their days trying to eliminate uncertainty, avoid criticism, escape discomfort, and secure endless approval. Yet every attempt to build such a life increases dependence upon things that cannot be commanded. The more tightly you cling to favorable conditions, the more vulnerable you become whenever those conditions change. Freedom is found elsewhere. It begins when you stop demanding that the world satisfy your preferences before you allow yourself to remain calm. The world has never accepted such conditions, and it never will. Look carefully at the moments that trouble you most. They often expose hidden beliefs that have never been questioned. Perhaps you secretly believe that every mistake makes you less valuable. Perhaps you believe that being misunderstood is unbearable. Perhaps you believe that uncertainty is evidence that something terrible must happen. These beliefs quietly direct your emotions long before you recognize their influence. They become invisible rulers, shaping your reactions while remaining hidden from examination. The Stoic path demands that every one of these rulers be brought into the light and questioned without mercy. Ask yourself whether your judgment serves reason or merely serves habit. Habit is powerful because it disguises itself as necessity. If you have complained for years, complaint begins to feel natural. If you have worried about tomorrow every evening, worry begins to resemble wisdom. If you have constantly sought approval, dependence begins to appear as kindness. Yet repetition does not transform falsehood into truth. A mistaken judgment remains mistaken no matter how many years you have repeated it. There is remarkable strength in slowing the mind before granting agreement to its first conclusions. Imagine an unexpected setback occurring today. Before allowing frustration to grow, ask a simple question. What exactly has happened? Separate the observable fact from everything your imagination has added. The fact may be that an opportunity disappeared. Your imagination immediately declares that your future has been destroyed. The fact may be that someone disagreed with you. Your imagination announces that respect has vanished forever. The fact is usually much smaller than the story constructed around it. The disciplined mind refuses to decorate reality with unnecessary suffering. It does not deny hardship. It simply refuses to multiply hardship through careless judgment. Pain may arrive on its own. There is no wisdom in manufacturing additional pain through exaggerated interpretation. The rational person carries only what truly exists. The irrational person carries both reality and imagination, then wonders why life feels unbearable. Begin every morning by preparing your judgments before the world attempts to shape them for you. Sit quietly for a few moments before entering the demands of the day. Remind yourself that you will encounter impatience, misunderstanding, inconvenience, temptation, and uncertainty. None of these possess authority over your character. They become powerful only if your judgment grants them that authority. Your task is not to predict every event. Your task is to preserve clear judgment regardless of which event arrives. As you move through the day, practice interrupting automatic reactions. When irritation appears, pause before speaking. When anxiety begins gathering strength, delay your agreement with its conclusions. Tell yourself that an impression has arrived, but a decision has not yet been made. This single pause restores the rightful order of the mind. It allows reason to resume its proper place as guide rather than servant. Most regrets are born in moments where this pause never occurred. Notice also how often your emotional state depends upon expectations you invented without necessity. You expect everyone to recognize your effort. You expect circumstances to unfold according to your plans. You expect people to behave consistently with your preferences. Every expectation becomes another opportunity for disappointment because none of these things belong entirely to your authority. When reality chooses another direction, resentment appears as though reality has committed an injustice. Yet the true source of disturbance was not reality. It was the judgment that reality had an obligation to obey your wishes. Train yourself to replace expectation with preparedness. Expectation demands favorable outcomes. Preparedness welcomes every outcome as material for virtue. If success arrives, meet it with moderation. If failure arrives, meet it with steadiness. If praise arrives, do not become intoxicated by it. If criticism arrives, examine it honestly without surrendering your peace. In every circumstance, your responsibility remains identical. Govern your own judgment before attempting to govern anything else. There is another practice that deserves your full attention. Throughout the day, quietly ask yourself, what belongs to me right now? Not tomorrow, not next year, right now. Your decision belongs to you. Your honesty belongs to you. Your patience belongs to you. Your willingness to remain just belongs to you. Another person's attitude does not belong to you. Their approval does not belong to you. Their misunderstanding does not belong to you. Fortune does not belong to you. By returning repeatedly to this distinction, the mind gradually stops exhausting itself, chasing authority it never possessed. Many fears disappear the moment they are examined with precision. A vague fear feels enormous because it lacks clear boundaries. Once defined, it often becomes manageable. Instead of saying everything is going wrong, identify exactly what has happened. Instead of declaring, I cannot handle this, ask what action remains available. Reason thrives on clarity. Panic thrives on confusion. Every precise question weakens the influence of fear because it restores the mind to reality instead of imagination. The evening offers another opportunity for discipline. Before sleep, review your judgments rather than merely reviewing your events. Ask where you accepted appearances too quickly. Ask where emotion became stronger than reason. Ask where impatience replaced understanding. Ask where pride prevented honest correction. Then ask where you succeeded in maintaining clear judgment despite difficulty. Strength grows through repeated examination because every day becomes another lesson rather than another accident. Do not perform this examination to condemn yourself. Self-condemnation often becomes another disguise for pride because it keeps attention fixed upon the self instead of improvement. Honest examination has only one purpose. It seeks correction. A mistake acknowledged with sincerity becomes instruction. A mistake ignored becomes habit. The disciplined person values truth more than comfort because truth alone can transform character. Be careful not to confuse emotional intensity with certainty. Strong feelings often persuade you that they must be accurate simply because they feel powerful. Yet a storm inside the mind proves only that emotion is active. It proves nothing about reality. A calm examination frequently reveals that the mind has reacted not to what exists, but to what it feared might exist. This recognition restores dignity because it reminds you that reason remains capable of guiding your life if you choose to follow it. Remember that every judgment shapes character. Every complaint strengthens the habit of complaint. Every deliberate act of patience strengthens patience. Every excuse strengthens weakness. Every honest correction strengthens wisdom. Character is not built in extraordinary moments alone. It is quietly constructed through thousands of ordinary judgments accepted or rejected throughout the day. No decision is insignificant because every decision teaches the mind what it should become. If you wish to become difficult to disturb, begin by becoming difficult to deceive. Refuse to accept every fearful thought simply because it arrives with urgency. Refuse to believe that discomfort automatically signals disaster. Refuse to conclude that temporary difficulty defines your entire life. Instead, ask whether your judgment agrees with reason, whether it concerns something truly within your authority, and whether it encourages virtue rather than impulse. These questions gradually reshape the entire direction of your inner life. There will still be days when uncertainty visits you. There will still be moments when disappointment knocks at your door without warning. Such moments are not evidence that your discipline has failed. They are the very opportunities your discipline has been preparing you to meet. A mind trained in careful judgment does not seek a life without trials. It seeks to remain upright within them. That is where genuine freedom appears, not in escaping life's demands, but in refusing to allow those demands to overthrow the government of your own mind. When this understanding becomes part of your daily practice, fear loses much of its influence because it can no longer hide behind careless assumptions. Every anxious thought must now pass before the court of reason. Every impulse must justify itself. Every complaint must answer whether it serves virtue or merely feeds weakness. In this way, your life slowly changes from the inside outward. Circumstances may continue to rise and fall according to their own nature, yet your judgments become steadier, your responses more deliberate, your character more reliable, and your peace less dependent upon the unpredictable movements of the world. This is the work that cannot be delegated. No teacher can perform it for you. No favorable fortune can replace it. No amount of external success can compensate for its neglect. Each morning offers another chance to govern your judgments. Each conversation presents another opportunity to choose reason over impulse. Each evening provides another moment to refine your character through honest examination. Continue this discipline without seeking immediate perfection. A well-governed mind is not built through sudden transformation, but through countless acts of quiet correction. With every judgment examined instead of blindly accepted, you move one step farther from fear and one step closer to the inner freedom that no external circumstance can ever take away. Number 3. Master what you can control. Every day begins with a quiet decision that most people never realize they are making. Before they speak, before they work, before they meet another person, they surrender their peace to forces that have never belonged to them. They hand it to uncertain outcomes, changing opinions, unexpected events, and the hope that life will unfold according to their wishes. By evening they feel exhausted, not because the day demanded too much, but because they spent their strength trying to govern what was never theirs to command. The greatest mistake is not that you face hardship, it is believing your well-being depends on preventing hardship from appearing. You have spent years attempting to negotiate with circumstances as though the world might eventually reward your anxiety by becoming predictable. It never does. Seasons change without asking your permission. People make choices beyond your influence. Fortune gives and removes according to its own course. Time continues whether you welcome it or resist it. Yet there is one territory that remains open to your rule every moment you are awake. It is not the behavior of another person. It is not tomorrow's result. It is not your reputation, your possessions, or the direction of chance. It is the way you choose to think, the standards you refuse to abandon, the intentions behind your actions, and the discipline with which you respond to whatever arrives. Most frustration begins the moment these boundaries become confused. A person cannot force another to understand them, yet they spend hours replaying conversations in search of impossible control. Someone cannot guarantee success despite honest effort, yet they judge themselves by outcomes that depend on countless causes outside their reach. Another cannot prevent change, yet they waste years demanding permanence from a world built upon movement. When the mind insists on ownership over what it cannot direct, disappointment becomes inevitable. Every delay feels like a personal attack. Every criticism appears as a verdict upon character. Every uncertainty grows into a source of restlessness. The problem is rarely the event itself. The problem is the silent belief that life has violated an agreement it never made. The disciplined life begins with a daily act of separation. Before the demands of the morning gather around you, sit quietly and ask 2 questions. What belongs to my authority today? What does not? Answer carefully. Your honesty belongs to you. Your patience belongs to you. Your effort belongs to you. The quality of your attention belongs to you. Your willingness to act with fairness belongs to you. The thoughts you choose to entertain belong to you. Then consider everything that lies outside those boundaries. The weather, the opinions of strangers, the timing of opportunities, the decisions made by other people, the praise you may or may not receive, the mistakes someone else refuses to admit. None of these become yours simply because they affect your emotions. Throughout the day, you will repeatedly feel the temptation to cross that boundary. You will want certainty where none exists. You will want recognition that may never come. You will want another person to become someone they have not chosen to become. Each time this desire appears, pause before following it. Ask yourself whether your energy is moving towards something you can actually shape, or towards something you merely wish to possess? This question is not meant to reduce your ambition. It is meant to concentrate your strength. A river becomes powerful because its waters flow within clear banks. A scattered flood reaches everywhere but accomplishes little. Your attention works the same way. When it is constantly pulled towards circumstances beyond your direction, it loses the force required to govern the one place where genuine freedom exists, your own character. Make this another daily discipline. Before responding to any difficulty, ask, what action depends entirely upon me? There is almost always an answer. You can choose honesty instead of resentment. You can choose composure instead of haste. You can choose diligence instead of complaint. You can choose restraint instead of retaliation. These choices may not change the event, but they always shape the person you are becoming. Each evening, examine not whether life obeyed your plans, but whether you remained faithful to your principles. Did you keep your word? Did you allow anger to govern your speech? Did you waste attention chasing outcomes that belonged to chance? Did you neglect opportunities to practice patience, courage, moderation, or fairness? Let every answer become instruction for tomorrow rather than material for regret. A steady life is not built by controlling every circumstance. It is built by refusing to abandon your own judgment whenever circumstances refuse to obey you. The world will continue to surprise you. People will continue to act according to their own understanding. Fortune will continue to change its direction without warning. None of this prevents you from becoming more disciplined today than you were yesterday. The person who learns to govern what truly belongs to them discovers a freedom that no external success can provide. They stop measuring each day by whether events pleased them and begin measuring it by whether they acted with integrity. In that change of measure, the search for control finally comes to rest because it has found the only place where it has always existed. Number 4. Accept fate without inner resistance. You suffer more from resistance than from fate itself. That is the truth most people avoid because it does not flatter them. They want the world to be kinder, cleaner, slower, more obedient to their wishes. They want events to arrive only after they have been prepared, only in the form they prefer, only when they feel ready to receive them. But nature has never sworn allegiance to your preferences. It does not ask permission before it changes your plans. It does not check whether you are comfortable before it removes, delays, tests, or reorders what you thought was secure. The world moves. You either move with it in reason, or you fight it in vain and call the exhaustion by another name. Inner resistance is not strength. It is a refusal to see reality as it is. A man resists because he has already decided that what has happened should not have happened. He argues with the fact, then he calls the argument suffering. He tightens his jaw against the inevitable and then wonders why his mind feels broken. But what breaks a person is not the event alone. What breaks him is the hidden demand that reality must become something other than reality before he will consent to be at peace. That demand is childish. It is also endless, for no matter how many things go your way, more things will still remain outside your command. If your peace depends on a world without friction, you have built your life on sand. There is another way. It begins when you stop asking whether fate is fair and begin asking whether your response is worthy. Fate is not your servant. It is the field in which your character is revealed. Every loss, every interruption, every disappointment, every painful turn becomes a test of whether you can remain just, restrained, truthful, and clear. The event itself is not the measure of your life. The measure is what kind of mind you bring to the event. This is why the wise do not beg life to become easier. They train themselves to become better. You must first see how resistance works in your own mind. Something happens. Before you have considered it fully, the mind begins its rebellion. This should not have happened. This must be fixed. This cannot stand. I did not deserve this. Why now? Why me? Why this way? These are the cries of a will that believes it should have authority over what has already been set in motion. But the cry changes nothing. It only deepens the disturbance. The more you argue with what is, the more power you give to the thing you are arguing against. The mind becomes captive to the very circumstance it refuses to accept. Acceptance does not mean approving of evil, nor does it mean pretending pain is pleasant. It means acknowledging that what has happened, and that the next act belongs to you. You are not asked to love every event. You are asked not to waste your soul fighting what cannot be undone. This is a hard discipline because the human mind likes to believe that refusal preserves dignity. In truth, many refusals are only disguised forms of self-wounding. A man who spends hours resenting a loss does not recover what was lost. He only loses his composure as well. One wound becomes two. The first training is to distinguish between what is yours and what is not. Your judgment is yours. Your use of the moment is yours. Your willingness to act with justice is yours. Your capacity to remain moderate in the face of temptation is yours. Your ability to speak truth instead of complaint is yours. But what another person chooses is not yours. What tomorrow brings is not yours. What the body will endure is not yours. What fortune may take is not yours. When these boundaries are clear, resistance begins to lose its authority because you stop trying to command what can only be endured. Take the morning seriously, because the morning shapes the quality of resistance for the whole day. Before your duties begin, sit with the fact that the day will not bend itself around your wishes. There will be delays, there will be discomfort, there will be people who do not understand you. There may be losses, small or large. Some things will feel pleasant, and some will feel harsh. Accept in advance that the day will contain what it contains. This is not pessimism, this is preparation. The mind that has already made peace with change is less likely to be shattered by it. When the unexpected arrives, it meets a soul that has already stopped demanding the impossible. Then ask a serious question. What is the right use of this moment, exactly as it is? Not as you hoped it would be, not as you planned it to be, exactly as it is. This question cuts through fantasy. It brings the mind back from complaint into responsibility. If the task is to wait, wait without resentment. If the task is to speak, speak without drama. If the task is to withdraw, withdraw without bitterness. If the task is to continue, continue without self-pity. Every event asks only one thing from you, that you meet it as a rational being, rather than as a frightened child. The person who resists fate lives divided against himself. Part of him sees the fact. Another part keeps shouting that the fact should not be real. This division weakens him more than the event itself. But when reason takes the lead, the mind becomes unified. There is no need for inner shouting. There is no need to multiply suffering by protest. The event is admitted. The judgment is examined. The right action is chosen. That sequence restores order. Order is not coldness. It is freedom from needless conflict. You may think that acceptance will make you passive. It will not. It will make you effective. The man who accepts reality sees clearly what can be done. The man who resists reality wastes energy on fantasies of what should have been. Acceptance frees power that resistance squanders. Once you stop fighting the unchangeable, you can work with precision on what remains. That is the difference between nobility and noise. When pain comes, the first impulse is often to treat it like an insult. Do not do that. Pain is not always a verdict. It is often simply part of being alive in a changing world. If the body hurts, attend to what is needed without panic. If your plans fail, revise them without drama. If another person disappoints you, remember that their conduct belongs to their character, not to your control. If you are denied what you wanted, Ask whether the thing was truly good or only pleasant. Many desires collapse when examined under reason because they were never necessities at all. They were attachments wearing the mask of importance. Practice this as a daily discipline. When something unwanted happens, say to yourself, "This belongs to the order of things. It does not belong to my judgment unless I allow it." Then ask what virtue requires. This simple move prevents the mind from building a prison out of resistance. It turns the event into material for character rather than fuel for complaint. The obstacle remains, but it no longer owns your inner life. There is also a deeper acceptance that must be learned. You must accept that your life is brief, your power limited, and your role temporary. That is not a humiliation, it is a truth that makes virtue urgent. A man who believes he has endless time drifts. A man who understands that each moment is borrowed becomes serious. He stops postponing what must be done. He stops living as though he has a guarantee no one has given him. He begins to live in alignment with the actual structure of existence rather than the fantasy of control. If you look honestly, much of your resistance is really fear wearing a respectable face. You fear uncertainty, so you call it prudence. You fear loss, so you call your grasping responsibility. You fear being wrong, so you call your defensiveness integrity. You fear change, so you call your stubbornness principle. Strip away the names, and the mind is left exposed. That exposure is healthy. It is the beginning of wisdom. A man cannot transform what he refuses to see. So ask yourself today, where am I still arguing with the part of life I cannot alter? Where am I demanding a different past? Where am I resenting the nature of another person? Where am I exhausted by wishing reality were more obedient? Where have I mistaken inner resistance for strength? Be exact. Vagueness protects weakness. Precision strips it bare. The truth may sting for a moment, but it prevents years of avoidable suffering. Then practice release. Not emotional collapse, not indifference. Release. Let the event stand as it is. Let the thought of how things should have been pass without feeding it. Return attention to the present duty. Wash the dish, make the call, finish the work, speak the truth. Apologize where needed. Endure what cannot be changed. Refuse to waste the day on internal protest. Every time you release resistance, you recover a portion of yourself that was previously tied to illusion. Do this often enough, and acceptance will stop feeling like surrender. It will begin to feel like strength, because it is strength. It is the strength to agree with nature rather than argue with it. It is the strength to place reason above preference. It is the strength to remain upright when life declines to be convenient. It is the strength to say, "This is what has been given to me, and I will meet it honorably." That is enough, more than enough. That is the path of a disciplined mind. At the end of the day, the question is not whether fate has spared you from difficulty. It has not. The question is whether you have learned to meet difficulty without adding rebellion to pain. The soul that accepts fate without inner resistance becomes steady because it no longer wastes itself on what cannot be altered. It uses each event as a workshop for virtue. It no longer asks life to be gentler before it allows itself to be wise. It becomes wise in the middle of whatever life already is. So stop fighting the unavoidable. Stop feeding the mind with protest it cannot use. Stop calling resistance dignity when it is really confusion. Accept what has happened. Govern what remains. Return to reason. Return to duty. Return to the only authority that was ever truly yours. There is no need to conquer fate. There is only the need to meet it without losing yourself. Number 5. Courage through rational self-discipline. Most people misunderstand courage because they mistake intensity for strength. They believe courage appears in dramatic moments when danger becomes visible and the whole world is watching. Yet the greatest acts of courage are usually unseen. They take place in the quiet space between an impulse and a decision. They appear when no one applauds your restraint, when no one notices that you chose honesty instead of convenience, patience instead of anger, discipline instead of comfort. That is where real courage is formed. It is not born from excitement. It is built through rational self-discipline, one deliberate choice at a time. Look carefully at your own life. Every day you face opportunities to surrender yourself without realizing it. You promise yourself that you will speak with patience, then irritation arrives and your promise disappears. You decide to work with focus, then distraction calls your attention away. You intend to remain calm, then another person's words pull your emotions wherever they choose. By the end of the day, you wonder why you feel weak. The answer is not that life demanded too much. The answer is that you allowed each passing impulse to become your master. A mind that obeys every impulse cannot become courageous because it has never learned to govern itself. The first battle is not against hardship, it is against the habit of immediate obedience to desire and fear. Every impulse arrives demanding action. Anger tells you to speak before thinking. Anxiety tells you to imagine outcomes that do not yet exist. Comfort tells you to delay what ought to be done. Pride tells you to defend yourself even when correction would make you better. None of these voices deserve automatic authority. They must each be questioned before they are followed. A disciplined mind refuses to move simply because emotion has become loud. Many people spend years searching for confidence while neglecting the only foundation that can support it. Confidence built upon praise disappears when criticism arrives. Confidence built upon success collapses when failure appears. Confidence built upon comfort fades the moment discomfort enters the room. Rational self-discipline creates something far more dependable. It creates trust in your own character. You begin believing in yourself not because life has become easy, but because you have repeatedly witnessed yourself choosing what is right despite difficulty. That trust cannot be granted by another person. It is earned through consistent conduct. Notice how often your suffering begins long before any real challenge appears. A difficult conversation approaches, and your thoughts rehearse defeat. A demanding task waits before you, and your imagination predicts failure before you have even begun. An uncertain future presents itself, and your attention fills the empty space with invented disasters. In each case, discipline is abandoned before reality has spoken. Your reasoning faculty has surrendered its position to imagination. This is not caution. It is unnecessary submission to possibilities that may never exist. The disciplined person refuses to allow imagination to command today's actions. Instead, attention returns to the present responsibility. What must be done now? What decision belongs to this moment? What action reflects integrity regardless of tomorrow's outcome? These questions gather the scattered mind and direct it toward useful effort. Energy that once fed unnecessary worry becomes available for meaningful work. Begin each morning by establishing your inner direction before the world attempts to establish it for you. Sit quietly without rushing toward distraction. Remind yourself that your purpose is not to collect pleasant experiences, but to practice excellence of character. Difficulties may arrive before the day has fully begun. They are not interruptions of your discipline. They are the occasions for your discipline. Resolve that nothing you encounter will persuade you to abandon fairness, honesty, moderation, or thoughtful judgment. Such preparation strengthens the mind before the first challenge appears. Throughout the day, pay close attention to the language you use within yourself. When you tell yourself that something is impossible, ask whether reason has reached that conclusion, or whether fear has spoken first. When you insist that you cannot endure discomfort, examine whether you are describing reality or merely expressing preference. The disciplined person separates facts from emotional exaggeration. Reality is often demanding enough, without adding false conclusions that increase its weight. There is tremendous power in delaying reaction. Every unnecessary conflict grows stronger because someone refused to pause. Every careless decision gathers force because someone confused urgency with necessity. Build the habit of waiting before responding. Let your first instinct settle. Observe it without becoming its servant. During that brief silence, ask whether your next action will strengthen or weaken your character. This single question has prevented countless regrets throughout history, and it remains just as valuable today. Self-discipline is not punishment, it is intelligent direction. A river does not become powerful because it spreads in every direction. It becomes powerful because its movement is guided. Your attention follows the same principle. If it is scattered among endless distractions, emotional reactions, and passing desires, it loses its capacity to accomplish meaningful work. When guided by reason, however, even ordinary actions acquire remarkable strength because they are performed with deliberate purpose. You must also learn to recognize the difference between temporary discomfort and genuine harm. Many people avoid difficult conversations because they mistake discomfort for danger. They postpone necessary responsibilities because effort feels unpleasant. They remain silent when truth should be spoken because embarrassment appears unbearable. Yet none of these experiences injure character. What injures character is abandoning what is right simply to escape a passing feeling. Courage begins when virtue becomes more valuable than comfort. Train yourself deliberately in small acts of discipline. Complete a task without seeking constant entertainment. Listen carefully instead of preparing your reply while another person speaks. Finish what you begin even after enthusiasm disappears. Rise when you intended to rise instead of negotiating endlessly with your own excuses. These actions may appear insignificant, yet they steadily reshape the governing habits of the mind. Character grows quietly through repeated obedience to reason in ordinary circumstances. Do not wait for extraordinary tests before deciding what kind of person you wish to become. Great challenges reveal habits that were formed long before the challenge arrived. A person who practices patience during minor frustrations is better prepared when serious hardship appears. Someone who consistently tells the truth in small matters finds it easier to remain honest when honesty becomes costly. Daily discipline prepares the soul for future uncertainty without requiring knowledge of what tomorrow contains. Observe how frequently complaint disguises itself as honesty. A person claims they are merely describing reality while repeatedly feeding resentment. Another insists they are only expressing frustration while strengthening the habit of dissatisfaction. Words shape attention, and attention shapes character. Speak about difficulties with accuracy rather than exaggeration. Describe events as they are, not as emotion wishes them to appear. This habit protects reason from becoming overwhelmed by unnecessary drama. As evening approaches, refuse to measure the day by external achievements alone. Instead, examine whether you remained faithful to your governing principles. Did you preserve integrity when convenience invited compromise? Did you remain composed when irritation tempted you toward careless speech? Did you allow another person's conduct to dictate your own? Did you perform your responsibilities with full attention or merely with reluctant compliance? These questions gradually transform each day into a lesson rather than a series of disconnected experiences. Be patient with progress while remaining uncompromising about direction. Improvement does not occur because you wish for it sincerely. It occurs because disciplined choices are repeated until they become stable habits. Some days you will notice weakness that surprises you. Welcome that discovery. Hidden faults cannot be corrected. Seen clearly, they become opportunities for deliberate training rather than reasons for discouragement. You may believe that courage requires extraordinary confidence before action becomes possible. In reality, courage often appears before confidence. The disciplined person acts because reason has identified the proper course, not because every feeling has become comfortable. Waiting for fear to disappear before acting wisely often means waiting forever. Feelings change according to many causes beyond your control. Character develops through decisions that remain steady despite changing emotions. There will be moments when another person's behavior invites you toward bitterness. Resist the invitation. Their choices belong to them. Your response belongs to you. Refuse to surrender ownership of your character simply because someone else has neglected theirs. A disciplined person does not imitate another's faults. They remain guided by principles that exist independently of another person's conduct. Guard yourself against the belief that discipline removes joy from life. The opposite is true. Disorder steals peace because every desire competes for immediate satisfaction. Every impulse demands obedience. Every disappointment becomes overwhelming. Discipline restores harmony by placing reason where it belongs, at the center of decision. From that order comes a quieter, more durable contentment than excitement can ever provide. Practice ending each day with gratitude for opportunities to strengthen character rather than merely for pleasant experiences. The demanding conversation gave you an opportunity to practice patience. The unexpected delay allowed you to exercise composure. The difficult decision became a chance to choose honesty over convenience. Life constantly provides material for virtue if you are willing to recognize it. What appears burdensome to an undisciplined mind often becomes valuable training to a disciplined one. Remember that every decision quietly answers an important question. Who governs your life? Is it fear? Is it comfort? Is it public opinion? Is it habit, or is it reason shaped by unwavering commitment to what is right? You answer this question not once but continuously. Every reaction, every conversation, every choice contributes another sentence to the story your character is writing. Do not seek admiration for your discipline. Seek consistency. Admiration depends upon the changing opinions of others. Consistency depends upon your own commitment to truth. Quiet integrity often accomplishes more than impressive appearances because it continues working long after attention has moved elsewhere. Build the kind of character that remains dependable whether anyone notices or not. If you wish to become genuinely courageous, stop searching for dramatic opportunities to prove yourself. Begin mastering the ordinary moments that fill every day. Govern your attention instead of allowing distraction to govern you. Direct your speech instead of allowing emotion to direct it. Examine your judgments before accepting them. Choose thoughtful action instead of automatic reaction. Complete today's responsibilities without bargaining with laziness or fear. These are not small victories. Together they shape a person who cannot easily be shaken because they have learned that true strength is never granted by fortune. It is patiently built through rational self-discipline until reason becomes stronger than impulse and virtue becomes more precious than ease. Number 6. Conquer death before it arrives. The fear that quietly governs most lives is rarely spoken aloud. It hides behind hesitation, endless preparation, unnecessary worry, and the belief that there will always be another opportunity tomorrow. Beneath each of these habits is the same assumption: there is still plenty of time. Yet no one has been promised another sunrise. The person who understands this does not become fearful, they become purposeful. The awareness of mortality is not an invitation to despair. It is a call to live with complete attention while this moment is still yours. Many people imagine death as an event waiting somewhere in the distant future. Because of this belief, they postpone difficult conversations, delay worthy work, neglect their character, and allow resentment to remain unexamined. They treat each day as though it were merely preparation for living, instead of recognizing that each day is life itself. This habit slowly steals years without appearing dangerous. The greatest loss is often not the final day, but the countless ordinary days surrendered to distraction, complaint, and indecision. To conquer death before it arrives is not to overcome mortality. No human being possesses such power. It is to remove death's ability to frighten you into living poorly. The person who has accepted life's natural limit no longer wastes energy pretending that permanence can be achieved through possessions, reputation, or constant success. They understand that everything entrusted to them has been given temporarily. Their responsibility is not ownership without end, but honorable stewardship while the opportunity remains. Observe how often your decisions are shaped by avoiding thoughts of life's impermanence. You remain in habits that diminish you because change feels uncertain. You postpone necessary action because comfort appears safer than growth. You remain attached to grievances because forgiving seems to surrender something valuable. Yet every unnecessary delay quietly consumes the one resource that cannot be replaced. Time never argues with your excuses. It simply continues. Each morning, before allowing the demands of the day to capture your attention, remind yourself that today possesses genuine significance, not because extraordinary events are guaranteed to occur, but because this day will never return. Ask yourself what kind of person deserves to reach the evening with a peaceful conscience. Let that question shape your priorities before circumstances begin making decisions on your behalf. Throughout the day, practice returning your attention to what can still be accomplished, rather than dwelling upon what cannot be recovered. The past no longer belongs to your authority. Tomorrow has not yet entered your care. Only the present decision remains available. Whether you speak honestly, whether you respond with patience, whether you fulfill your responsibilities faithfully, whether you govern your thoughts with reason, these are choices that exist only now. Many fears lose their strength when examined beside mortality. The embarrassment you dread becomes smaller when measured against the brevity of life. The approval you chase appears less valuable when you remember that every opinion changes with time. Even many ambitions reveal themselves to be little more than distractions once viewed from the perspective of life's limited span. This reflection does not diminish meaningful effort. Instead, it removes unnecessary burdens that prevent meaningful effort from receiving your full attention. There is also another kind of death that deserves your attention long before the body reaches its end. Every time you surrender your judgment to anger, fear, envy, or resentment, a portion of your freedom disappears. Every occasion where impulse replaces reason weakens the character you are responsible for cultivating. A life may continue outwardly while the inner discipline that gives it dignity slowly declines. Guard against this loss with greater care than you guard against external misfortune. Develop the habit of examining your day before sleep. Do not ask only what happened. Ask what kind of person you were while events unfolded. Did you preserve fairness when treated unfairly? Did you remain truthful when convenience tempted compromise? Did you spend your attention wisely, or did you scatter it across trivial concerns? Such questions prepare the mind to begin tomorrow with greater clarity rather than carrying unnoticed faults into another day. The awareness of mortality should never make you anxious about the future. Its proper purpose is to make you faithful to the present. Every conversation deserves your attention because it may never occur again. Every opportunity to act justly deserves immediate acceptance because delay is never guaranteed another chance. Every act of kindness, restraint, courage, or honesty strengthens the only possession that remains truly your own, the quality of your character. You cannot decide how many years will be given to you. You can decide whether today's hours are governed by wisdom or wasted through distraction. You cannot prevent change from reaching every part of your life. You can prevent fear of change from determining your conduct. You cannot command the length of your journey, but you retain the freedom to determine the manner in which you travel it. When the reality of mortality is accepted instead of avoided, something remarkable happens. Small resentments lose their importance. Endless comparison becomes exhausting rather than attractive. Complaint begins to feel like a misuse of precious time. Attention naturally returns to the work that truly matters, governing your thoughts, fulfilling your responsibilities, strengthening your character, and meeting each circumstance with integrity. The person who has already made peace with life's natural conclusion becomes unusually difficult to intimidate. They no longer surrender their principles for temporary advantage because they recognize that every compromise leaves a lasting mark upon character, while every external reward eventually passes away. Their courage does not come from believing they will live forever. It comes from knowing that a well-lived day possesses greater value than a long life spent abandoning what is right. Carry this reflection into tomorrow. Rise with the awareness that another day is a privilege rather than an entitlement. Speak carefully because words cannot be reclaimed once released. Act with integrity because every decision contributes to the person you are becoming. Let mortality sharpen your commitment rather than weaken your spirit. When each day is approached in this way, death gradually loses its power over the mind because it no longer finds a person postuming life. It finds someone already fully engaged in the only work that truly matters, living each moment with reason, virtue, and an undivided character. Number 7. Ignore opinions, embrace Stoic virtue. You waste more of your life on the judgment of other people than on the work of your own soul. That is the hidden bargain most men make without ever admitting it. They shape their speech to win approval. They adjust their choices to avoid criticism. They hide their convictions when they fear disfavor. They become restless when unseen and proud when praised, as if the value of a human being could be measured by voices that rise and fall with the wind. But the opinions of others are not your ruler, and they are not your measure. They are outside your command, outside your ownership, and outside the true seat of your character. To live for them is to hand your peace to a crowd that never agreed to preserve it. You must first tell the truth about what public opinion actually is. It is a collection of impressions formed by minds that are themselves uncertain, partial, distracted, and often mistaken. One person praises what another condemns. One generation applauds what the next despises. A crowd may celebrate vice when it wears a pleasant face, and mock virtue when it stands without ornament. If you build your life around such shifting ground, you will never stand still inside yourself. You will bend every day toward whatever seems fashionable, useful, or admired, and then wonder why your mind feels divided and weak. A soul that chases applause becomes a servant to noise. Virtue does not need a witness to be real. Justice is justice whether the room notices or not. Temperance is temperance whether anyone compliments it or not. Courage is courage whether it is celebrated or misunderstood. Truth is truth even when it stands alone. This is the foundation you must recover. Your task is not to become impressive. Your task is to become upright. Your task is not to be seen as noble. Your task is to be noble in the only way that matters, by making your character answer to reason rather than to appetite, fear, and vanity. Look closely at the places where other people's opinions have already trained your behavior. You may speak too much because you fear silence will make you appear small. You may stay quiet when truth should be spoken because you fear another person's disapproval. You may exaggerate your successes, conceal your failures, or keep your conscience flexible depending on who is watching. All of this is slavery. It is the rule of external judgment over inner governance. A man who cannot act rightly unless he believes someone will applaud him has not yet learned self-command. He has merely learned performance. The morning is where this battle must begin. Before the day gathers its voices around you, sit with the fact that you do not control how others will see you. They will misunderstand some things. They will forget some efforts. They will admire the wrong qualities and overlook the right ones. Some will speak well of you without knowing you. Others will speak badly of you without justice. None of this belongs to your authority. What belongs to you is the choice to live with integrity despite all of it. Begin the day by reminding yourself that approval is not your work. Character is your work. Then ask yourself a question with complete seriousness. If no one were watching, what would reason require of me now? This question strips away pretense. It exposes the gap between your public self and your actual self. It reveals whether your conduct is guided by principle or by the hidden desire to be admired. In that honesty there is freedom, because once you see the place where vanity has taken control, you can begin to remove it. The mind cannot heal what it refuses to reveal. Do not think that virtue is diminished by obscurity. Much of what is best in a life is done in private and never recorded by the world. You do not need an audience to be patient with a difficult person. You do not need an audience to remain truthful when a lie would be easier. You do not need an audience to refuse envy, refuse indulgence, refuse deceit, refuse cowardice. These victories are smaller in appearance and larger in consequence than public triumphs. They reshape the soul where no applause can reach. That is why they matter. A man becomes what he repeatedly chooses when no one can reward him. The opinion of others often survives because people are too lazy to examine it. They accept praise and blame as if both were evidence of truth. But praise can flatter weakness, and blame can punish virtue. The crowd is not a judge worth fearing. It is a weather pattern. Sometimes warm, sometimes cold, never stable enough to build a life upon. You do not ask the sky to tell you who you are. You do not ask the wind to decide what is good. So why should you ask a collection of passing opinions to determine the worth of your conduct? There is a simple discipline here, and it begins with separation. Separate what belongs to you from what does not. Your judgments belong to you. Your intentions belong to you. Your actions belong to you. Your willingness to choose the good belongs to you. But the praise of others does not belong to you. Their misunderstanding does not belong to you. Their changing moods do not belong to you. Their gossip does not belong to you. Their envy does not belong to you. Once this distinction is clear, much of your anxiety loses its force. You stop trying to manage what was never within your power. You recover energy for the one thing that has always mattered, the quality of your own conduct. Throughout the day, when you feel yourself beginning to adjust your behavior for approval, pause and examine the impulse before obeying it. Ask whether you are about to speak truthfully or merely safely. Ask whether you are about to act justly or merely advantageously. Ask whether your next choice will strengthen character or polish appearance. There is often a small moment before self-betrayal becomes action. Use that moment. A brief pause can save a great deal of regret. The mind that learns to question its first impulse becomes harder to deceive. Many people think they fear criticism because they are sensitive. In truth, what they often fear is exposure. Criticism threatens the masks they have built. It may reveal where they are weak, dishonest, inconsistent, or dependent on praise. That fear can become useful if it drives honest self-examination instead of defensive pride. Let criticism teach you where you can improve, but never let it define your value. If someone points out a fault that is true, receive it without resentment and correct the fault. If the criticism is false, let it pass without disturbance. In both cases, reason remains in command. This is how a free mind behaves.
You must also stop treating admiration as nourishment. The hunger to be admired grows stronger each time it is fed. It never says enough. It asks for more attention, more recognition, more confirmation. Yet the soul does not become healthy by being praised. It becomes healthy by being ordered. Praise may accompany virtue, but it is not virtue. It may follow good conduct, but it is not the source of good conduct. If you confuse the two, You will soon begin doing the right thing only when it is convenient to be seen doing it, and that is not excellence. That is vanity with a respectable face.
The evening review is where this habit must be judged honestly. Ask where you changed your conduct for appearances. Ask where you silenced your conscience to avoid being disliked. Ask where you sought to impress instead of simply doing what was right. Ask where you felt wounded by disapproval that should have been irrelevant. Then ask where you stood firm, where you spoke plainly, where you resisted the pressure to become other than yourself. Let the day be examined not by its applause but by its truth. In this practice, the inner life becomes visible to itself. There is courage in no longer needing to be understood by everyone. A life ruled by the need to be understood is a life always waiting to be granted permission to act. But reason does not wait for permission from the crowd. It speaks, decides, and moves according to what is just. If some approve, that is incidental. If others object, that is also incidental. The moral value of an act does not rise and fall with the reaction it receives. A just act remains just even if misread. A cowardly act remains cowardly even if praised. You must train yourself to stand on the side of truth before you know who will applaud it. The more you study human behavior, the less surprised you become by opinion. People often praise what resembles themselves and condemn what exposes them. They admire confidence until it reveals their own hesitation. They admire honesty until it challenges their convenience. They admire restraint until it limits their indulgence. This is why the wise do not allow public approval to rule them. They know how frequently it is distorted by self-interest. To rely on it is to rely on a mirror cracked by vanity. So return again and again to the same center. What is up to you? Your judgment, your intention, your choice, your conduct. What is not up to you? Reputation, popularity, approval, misunderstanding, criticism, the attention of the crowd. When this division is held firmly, the soul becomes less anxious and more stable. You stop chasing shadows. You stop trying to be everything to everyone. You stop asking the world to certify your worth before you are willing to act with dignity. That is a serious liberation. Do not wait to feel free before you begin to live this way. Freedom grows through practice. Each time you refuse to flatter, exaggerate, hide, or perform for approval, you strengthen the part of you that belongs to reason. Each time you allow other people's opinions to pass without disturbing your character, you become less governable by accident. Each time you choose what is right, even when it is unpopular, you prove to yourself that virtue is not dependent on an audience. That proof becomes more valuable with every repetition. There will be moments when the crowd seems loud and your quiet principles seem small. Hold fast. The size of a voice does not determine the truth of it. The number of people who agree with a thing does not make it good. A single upright mind is worth more than a room full of approval bought at the cost of integrity. You do not need to be celebrated to be sound. You do not need to be praised to be free. You do not need to be understood by all to remain faithful to reason. The world will continue to offer its judgments. Accept them for what they are, outside your command, useful only when they happen to align with truth, useless when they do not. Your task is simpler and more demanding at once. Live so that your own conscience can stand without shame before reason. Let virtue be your standard, not opinion. Let duty be your aim, not applause. Let character be your treasure, not reputation. When you do this, you cease living as a subject of passing voices and begin living as the governor of your own soul. Number 8. Train your mind against fear. Fear rarely arrives wearing its true name. It often disguises itself as caution, delay, endless preparation, or the belief that one more day of waiting will somehow make the next decision easier. Yet every time you surrender to this quiet hesitation, fear grows stronger, while your capacity for reason grows weaker. Left unexamined, it becomes the unseen ruler of your choices. It determines what opportunities you avoid, which conversations you postpone, and how much of your own potential remains locked behind imagined dangers. The first step toward freedom is recognizing that fear is not always a reliable guide. Your mind is capable of creating vivid pictures of failure long before reality has spoken. It imagines rejection before a word has been exchanged. It predicts defeat before genuine effort has begun. It transforms uncertainty into certainty, not because the future has been revealed, but because the imagination has been left without discipline. A trained mind learns to distinguish between possibility and probability. It refuses to treat every anxious thought as a trustworthy prediction. Most people do not lose their peace because life is constantly threatening them. They lose it because they allow every uncomfortable possibility to occupy their attention, as though it were already true. Hours are spent rehearsing arguments that never happen, mourning losses that never occur, and preparing for disasters that never arrive. While the body remains safe in the present, the mind wanders into an imagined future and returns carrying burdens that reality never placed upon it. The discipline of reason begins by questioning every fearful impression before accepting it. When anxiety presents a frightening conclusion, do not immediately obey it. Instead, ask yourself what evidence truly exists. Separate observable facts from imagined outcomes. This simple habit interrupts the automatic chain that turns uncertainty into panic. It restores your ability to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Each morning offers an opportunity to strengthen this discipline before the day's demands appear. Spend a few quiet moments, considering that difficulties may arise. You may encounter delays, misunderstandings, disappointment, or unexpected change. None of these events determine the quality of your character. They merely provide occasions to exercise it. Prepare yourself not by hoping for a perfect day, but by resolving to meet whatever comes with patience, fairness, and steady judgment. Throughout the day, pay close attention to the language of your inner dialogue. When you hear yourself saying, "I can't handle this," pause immediately. Replace exaggeration with accuracy. You may not enjoy the situation, but discomfort is not the same as incapacity. Human beings possess a remarkable ability to endure more than they first imagine when guided by clear thinking instead of emotional momentum. Every corrected thought weakens fear's influence and strengthens confidence grounded in experience rather than wishful thinking. Another essential practice is reducing your dependence on certainty. Fear often grows because the mind demands guarantees that life cannot provide. You want assurance that your effort will succeed before you begin. You want confirmation that others will understand you before you speak honestly. You want proof that change will be comfortable before you accept it, yet no such promises exist. The attempt to secure complete certainty leads only to endless hesitation. A disciplined person acts according to sound principles, even when outcomes remain unknown. Notice how often fear persuades you to protect your comfort instead of your character. It encourages silence when honesty is needed. It recommends avoidance when responsibility calls. It offers temporary relief while quietly weakening your integrity. Every decision made solely to escape discomfort teaches the mind that fear deserves authority. Every decision guided by reason teaches the opposite. Courage grows not because fear disappears, but because fear no longer determines your conduct. There is value in deliberately practicing manageable forms of discomfort. Choose small challenges that strengthen your willingness to remain composed when convenience is absent. Complete demanding work without constant distraction. Accept minor inconvenience without complaint. Resist the urge to seek immediate gratification whenever desire appears. These exercises are not about making life harder unnecessarily. They are about proving to yourself that your well-being depends more upon your character than upon favorable conditions. When another person's opinion causes anxiety, return your attention to what genuinely belongs to you. Their approval cannot be commanded. Their misunderstanding cannot always be prevented. What remains entirely within your authority is the honesty of your intentions, the fairness of your actions, and the consistency of your principles. Fear loses much of its influence when you stop measuring success by external responses and begin measuring it by the quality of your own conduct. Develop the habit of responding slowly during emotionally charged moments. Fear thrives on haste because hurried reactions rarely allow reason enough time to speak. Before sending the message, making the decision, or answering the criticism, pause. Ask yourself whether your response reflects your values or merely your emotions. That brief interval often determines whether you strengthen your character or surrender it. As evening arrives, examine your day with honesty rather than self-condemnation. Identify the moments where fear influenced your choices. Did you avoid a necessary responsibility? Did you exaggerate a possible danger? Did you allow uncertainty to consume attention better directed toward useful action? Then identify moments where you remain steady despite discomfort. Celebrate these quietly, not as reasons for pride, but as evidence that disciplined habits are taking root. Do not expect this training to remove fear entirely. The goal is not emotional perfection. The goal is dependable judgment. Fear may still appear because it is part of the human experience. What changes is your relationship with it. Instead of becoming its servant, you become its observer. You notice its arrival, examine its claims, and decide whether it deserves your agreement. This shift transforms fear from a master into information that reason may evaluate. Remember that every challenge contains two possibilities. One is the external event itself. The other is the opportunity to strengthen your character through the way you meet it. The first often lies beyond your control. The second always belongs to you. When your attention consistently returns to this distinction, fear gradually loses the power to dominate your life. A disciplined mind is not fearless because nothing difficult happens. It is fearless because it has learned that character remains available under every circumstance. It understands that honesty can still be chosen during uncertainty, patience can still be practiced during frustration, courage can still be exercised in the presence of anxiety, and wisdom can still guide action when outcomes remain unknown. Train your mind each day with deliberate intention. Question fearful assumptions before accepting them. Direct your attention toward present responsibilities instead of imagined futures. Welcome ordinary opportunities to strengthen resilience through disciplined action. End each evening by refining your judgment and preparing for tomorrow's challenges with greater clarity than you possessed today. Over time, this steady practice reshapes the inner life. Fear no longer governs your decisions because reason has reclaimed its rightful place. From that foundation grows a quiet confidence that does not depend on luck, approval, or certainty, but on the enduring knowledge that whatever circumstances arise, you possess the capacity to meet them with integrity, wisdom, and unwavering self-command. Number 9. Live each day without regret. Regret rarely begins with a single great mistake. More often, it is built from countless ordinary moments when you knew the better course yet chose the easier one. It grows quietly while you postpone necessary action, ignore the guidance of reason, and allow habit to decide the direction of your days. By the time regret becomes visible, it has already been shaped by hundreds of unnoticed decisions. The good news is that this process can be reversed. Every day offers another opportunity to replace unconscious living with deliberate character. Most people believe regret belongs to the past, but its true source exists in the present. The pain you fear tomorrow is created by the choices you avoid today. Every time you remain silent when honesty is required, every time you delay work that deserves your attention, every time you surrender your judgment to comfort instead of principle, you are quietly constructing the burden that your future self will eventually carry. A wise life begins by recognizing this connection and refusing to add another unnecessary stone to that weight. Your past cannot be rewritten. No amount of reflection changes what has already occurred, yet this truth should not discourage you. It should redirect your attention. The only place where regret loses its power is the present moment, because only here can better judgment become action. Instead of asking how different your life might have been, ask how faithfully you can govern the hour that is now before you. The answer to that question shapes everything that follows. Each morning, remind yourself that the coming day is not guaranteed to unfold according to your preferences. Delays may appear, plans may change, other people may disappoint you. None of these events determine whether this day becomes worthy. Its value depends upon the quality of your responses. Resolve before the day begins that you will not measure success by comfort, praise, or favorable outcomes, but by whether you remain truthful, just, disciplined, and thoughtful under whatever circumstances arise. Throughout the day, practice returning your attention whenever it begins drifting toward unnecessary distraction. A wandering mind often seeks escape because disciplined effort feels demanding. Yet every meaningful achievement, every strengthened relationship, and every improvement of character requires sustained attention. Ask yourself frequently, is my present action worthy of the time I am spending? This simple question gradually aligns daily habits with lasting values. Much regret is born from waiting for ideal conditions that never arrive. You tell yourself you will become more disciplined when life becomes less busy. You promise greater patience after stress disappears. You postpone meaningful conversations until every uncertainty has been removed. But wisdom grows through practice in imperfect conditions, not through waiting for perfect ones. Begin where you are, using whatever opportunity is already available. Guard yourself against allowing temporary emotion to make permanent decisions. Anger encourages words that cannot be withdrawn. Fear postpones responsibilities that only become heavier through delay. Pride resists correction that could lead to growth. Before acting, pause long enough to ask whether your decision will still appear honorable when examined calmly this evening. This brief reflection often protects you from choices that produce lasting regret. Treat every interaction as an opportunity to exercise character rather than merely express personality. Speak honestly without becoming harsh. Listen carefully without preparing your defense. Offer fairness even when another person has failed to do the same. These choices strengthen the quality of your life because they remain within your authority regardless of another person's behavior. You cannot command how others respond, but you retain full responsibility for the standards governing your own conduct. Develop the discipline of evening examination. Before sleep, quietly review the day without self-deception and without unnecessary self-condemnation. Ask where reason guided your actions and where impulse took control. Notice where you remained patient under pressure and where irritation shaped your words. Identify opportunities you neglected and moments you used well. This daily practice transforms experience into instruction. Instead of allowing mistakes to harden into regret, you convert them into material for tomorrow's improvement. Remember that living without regret does not require a flawless life. It requires an examined one. Every human being falls short of their ideals at times. The difference lies in whether those shortcomings are ignored or confronted honestly. A person committed to self-examination corrects today's errors before they become lifelong habits. They refuse to protect weaknesses with excuses because they value growth more than temporary comfort. Do not become preoccupied with achievements that depend upon fortune while neglecting the virtues that depend entirely upon you. Wealth may arrive or disappear, recognition may increase or fade, health may strengthen or weaken through causes beyond your control. Yet honesty, fairness, courage, moderation, and thoughtful judgment remain available in every circumstance. Build your life upon these foundations, and even difficult days become meaningful because they contribute to lasting character rather than passing success. As you move through each day, remember that time is continually being exchanged for the kind of person you are becoming. Every hour spent complaining strengthens the habit of dissatisfaction. Every hour spent acting with integrity strengthens the habit of excellence. Whether you notice it or not, character is being shaped continuously. Choose carefully what you practice, because repeated actions quietly become enduring qualities. A peaceful life is not created by avoiding mistakes altogether. It is created by refusing to repeat avoidable ones and by remaining faithful to sound judgment whenever another opportunity appears. Let each sunrise become a reminder that today's choices belong entirely to you. Let each evening become an honest accounting of how wisely those choices were made. In this steady rhythm of deliberate living, regret gradually loses its influence, replaced by the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you have devoted each day to the cultivation of reason, integrity, and enduring character. Number 10. Become fearless through Stoic wisdom. Fearlessness is not the absence of threat. It is the absence of surrender to irrational judgment. Most people believe they lack courage because life feels overwhelming, but the real weakness is not in the world around them. It is in the speed at which their mind agrees with fear. A thought appears untested and unchallenged, and immediately it becomes belief. That belief then becomes emotion, and emotion becomes action. In this chain, reason is never given authority. The mind is carried away by impressions instead of governing them. Stoic wisdom begins by breaking this chain at its first link. You do not become fearless by changing external conditions. You become fearless by correcting the inner faculty that interprets those conditions. Two people can face the same situation and experience entirely different realities. One sees danger everywhere and becomes unstable. The other sees only what is within control and remains steady. The difference is not in the world. The difference is in judgment. When judgment is trained, fear loses its grip because fear depends on unexamined interpretation, not on objective reality itself. Most of your suffering begins before any real event occurs. It begins in anticipation, where imagination constructs outcomes that do not exist. You rehearse failure before attempting action. You simulate rejection before speaking. You imagine loss before engaging with life. These internal stories feel convincing, but they are not reality. They are projections created without evidence. A disciplined mind learns to interrupt this process and ask whether what is being imagined is actually present or merely suggested by anxiety. Each morning, before the demands of the day begin to shape your attention, you must establish clarity about what is yours to govern. Your judgments, your intentions, and your responses belong to you. Everything else does not. Fear thrives when this boundary is forgotten. When you believe that outcomes, opinions, and uncertainties are under your control, you become anxious trying to manage what cannot be governed. When you remember what is truly yours, fear loses its foundation because it has nothing stable left to attach itself to. Throughout the day, observe how quickly emotional interpretation tries to replace rational evaluation. A delayed response is immediately labeled as misfortune. A critical remark is instantly taken as injury. An uncertain situation is automatically treated as threat. These reactions happen so fast that they appear natural, but they are habits, not truths. Every habit can be examined, and every unexamined habit can be corrected. The disciplined person refuses to accept first impressions without scrutiny. Fear often disguises itself as practicality. It tells you to wait until conditions improve. It tells you to avoid risk in the name of caution. It tells you that safety is always wiser than action. But excessive caution is not wisdom when it prevents necessary growth. A life governed entirely by avoidance becomes smaller over time. Opportunities are not seized, conversations are not initiated, responsibilities are postponed, and gradually the mind begins to believe that inaction is safer than engagement. This belief is the root of stagnation. To become fearless, you must train yourself to remain present when discomfort appears. Instead of immediately reacting to tension, pause and examine it. Ask what part of this experience is external fact and what part is internal interpretation. Often what feels overwhelming is simply unknown, and what is unknown has been filled with imagined difficulty. When you strip away exaggeration, what remains is usually manageable. This practice restores proportion to perception. Another essential discipline is the acceptance of uncertainty. Fear intensifies when the mind demands guarantees that life cannot provide. You want assurance that effort will succeed before beginning. You want certainty that outcomes will be favorable before acting. But no such guarantees exist in human affairs. The demand for certainty leads only to hesitation. A rational mind chooses based on what is reasonable and aligned with virtue, not based on impossible demands for complete foresight. Pay attention to how fear tries to redirect your focus from responsibility to avoidance. It encourages you to think endlessly about consequences rather than engage with actions. It pulls your attention away from what can be done now and pushes it toward imagined futures that cannot be controlled. The disciplined response is always the same. Return attention to present duty. What is required of you in this moment? That question dissolves much of fear because it brings the mind back to what is actually available for action. Fear also weakens when you repeatedly expose yourself to small challenges instead of avoiding them. If you consistently choose comfort, your mind becomes fragile in the presence of difficulty. If you consistently choose appropriate effort despite discomfort, your mind becomes stable under pressure. Strength is not built through theory, it is built through repetition of deliberate action in situations that require effort. Each small act of chosen difficulty weakens fear's authority over time. Observe how fear distorts perception of yourself. It tells you that you are less capable than you are. It exaggerates the power of external obstacles while minimizing your ability to respond. This distortion can only survive when it is not challenged. The moment you act despite fear and discover that you are capable of handling the situation, the illusion weakens. Each corrected experience becomes evidence against future hesitation. Do not wait for fear to disappear before acting. That expectation is unrealistic. Fear is a natural response to uncertainty. The goal is not its elimination, but its proper placement beneath reason. Action guided by judgment must proceed even in the presence of discomfort. Waiting for emotional readiness often becomes another form of delay. Discipline is choosing what is right even when feeling unprepared. Evening reflection is essential in this training. At the end of the day, review moments where fear influenced your choices. Did you avoid speaking when truth was needed? Did you delay action due to imagined outcomes? Did you surrender to hesitation instead of reasoned decision? Then identify moments where you acted despite discomfort. These moments matter more than they seem because they show that fear is not absolute. It can be overridden. Fearlessness grows when you consistently distinguish between what can harm your body and what can disturb your mind. Many things that appear threatening only gain power through interpretation. Loss of reputation, temporary discomfort, uncertainty or criticism do not injure character unless you allow them to. The only true harm is acting against reason and abandoning virtue. Everything else is secondary. When you understand this distinction, external events lose their capacity to dominate your inner life. A difficult situation becomes an exercise in judgment rather than a source of collapse. A challenging conversation becomes an opportunity to practice restraint rather than a trigger for avoidance. A setback becomes information rather than identity. The mind becomes less reactive because it is no longer misclassifying events as threats to what truly matters. Fearlessness is also strengthened through the recognition that time is always limited. When you understand that opportunity is not infinite, hesitation becomes less attractive. You stop postponing necessary action because delay carries a clearer cost. This awareness does not create panic. It creates urgency grounded in clarity. The present moment becomes more valuable because it is the only space where action is possible. Finally, remember that wisdom is the foundation of fearlessness. Without understanding what is truly within your control, fear will continue to find places to attach itself. Without training judgment to evaluate impressions carefully, fear will continue to present itself as truth. Without discipline in action, fear will continue to grow through avoidance. But when wisdom governs perception, fear loses its authority because it can no longer disguise itself as reality. A fearless mind is not one that never feels uncertainty. It is one that refuses to be ruled by it. It sees impressions for what they are, not for what they suggest. It returns repeatedly to reason, to present action, and to the boundaries of control. In that steady return, fear gradually loses its influence. What remains is clarity, stability, and the quiet confidence that whatever arises in life can be met with disciplined judgment and unwavering self-command.